Welcome to another episode of Project CMS. Today I'd like to go over pretty much the mods done to date before we really get into these projects that we're going to be working on, so you kind of have a baseline of where the car is, and I can kind of know where I'm starting at this point, and we can track what these mods do and where it's going to take the car.
To kick things off, we'll start with the exterior of the car. I kept things fairly simple, and the only major change in bodywork is the RC hood and bumper. These were produced due to a revision to the WRC car for the sake of airflow. I actually have the small scoop next to the vent on the hood going to the timing belt cover as the design was intended. I also went with the clear corner lights. They appear a bit more modern than the OEM orange lights. The color of the car is GT Silver Metallic. It was an option color for the Porsche 911 and also the Clora GT. After going through what felt like thousands of silvers, this is one that I was able to see in person that had the proper effect that I felt showed off the lines of this car. I wanted to go badgeless, but we weren't able to actually get one of the holes on the hood to weld. I considered using the Toyota Tech emblem because I felt like that helped differentiate this from other Toyotas. However, I finally settled on a pearl black emblem meant for the MK4 Supra. I felt like it really fit the theme of black and silver that encompasses the entire vehicle. The only other badge outside the car is the GT4 emblem on the back. It's a quicker way to answer the question I usually get, to let people know it is actually a GT4. The OEM antenna was quite tall and gave the appearance of an RC car. Thanks to the gear finally wearing out, I replaced it with a short antenna meant for the 7th gen Celica. I used the base for the ST model I had found in the junkyard, threw away the old antenna motor, and hopefully saved a couple pounds in the process. Lastly, to fill out the fenders and clear my rear struts, I have a set of 25mm H&R spacers in the back. Onto the interior. As you can see, my theme is simplicity. I like the stockish look. While I like to modify, I want things to look as if they belong the way they were installed. Here you can see the first actual mod I'd done to the car. It's a Hgs Turbo Timer. It sits right below Toyota's Genius crotch vent. I have a 300mm Momo wheel. I feel this quickens up the steering some. Behind the wheel you can see a custom gauge pod I have with odometer boost and water temp gauges. In their design they closely resemble the stock gauges. Here you can see my custom short shifter topped with a Momo shift knob. Below the radio I fitted a Grady boost controller and a modified DIN pocket from a 6th gen Celica. I had to trim the door so that it would close underneath the head unit because the bezel around the head unit actually blocked the door. Also here is my Jvc Head Unit. I previously had a stock head unit and a disc changer in the glove box because I like to stay low key. But these days I only listen to MP3s and Pandora, so I need a radio that can accommodate that. Another great feature of this head unit is that you can change the color display to better match the OEM dash lights. On the note of the sound system, I rather like the sound of System 10. I did however upgrade the speakers in the doors to kickers, but it was only because I blew the stock speakers, so I felt I needed to put something in there that was a little bit better. And one last bit for the main electrical system, I'd actually wired in my radar detector. I did this so I didn't have to have a wire going to the power point. I could run it all the way through the trim, into the ceiling, and then it comes down right there. In the hatch you can see that I made some adjustments to fit my white line rear strut bar. I also relocated my battery back here. Don't mind those extra wires though, because those are for my trickle charger. This is the last part of my car that's still red as well, but I have not yet decided how I'm going to handle it. I'll either paint it or wrap it in vinyl. The suspension is my most modified point of focus of the car. While we can't see a lot of it at the moment without taking things off the car, I can give you a rundown of the components I've used. Starting with some of the things I installed, I'd put Super Pearl poly bushings all around and a white line front and rear strut bar. I also used the white line rear adjustable sway bar with racing beat rear end weights. These were meant for a Miata, but I adapted them to use on the All-Track. This is one of the most adjusted parts for these cars due to how much it affects the handling. To further stiffen the rear, the garbage OEM rear diff mount had to be tossed out. It was replaced by a solid rear mount made by Mario Koenig. The last brace to note is the Cusco front underbrace. This really sharpened up the steering of the car and kind of gave a more rigid feel to the front end. The car is lowered on T&HA coilovers. The springs are about 10 kg in the front and 8 kg in the rear. Likely the most major suspension item on my car is my brake setup and hub conversion. My front bolt pattern is now 5x114 using REV4 hubs. I'm using the Wilwood Superlight 1 calipers on the front with ultralight 2-piece rotors. I save about 12 pounds of unspring weight from each front wheel. The rear brake setup uses an OEM 205 rear brakes with MK4 Super pads, which are exactly the same as the GT4 pads. I classify tires and wheels under suspension. The wheels are 17x9 Sport Max 050s. Sadly, they're discontinued now, as I wanted a fifth wheel for a spare. The tires are 255/40 Margonis. They're a fairly heavy tire, but they stick far better than I expected. I have an extended slave rod for the clutch slave, and the rear differential is a ST205 torsion unit. The engine is fed through a custom K&N intake and cooled through an aluminum ASI radiator, assisted by a spout thin fan. The heat exchanger and intercooler pump are items intended as upgrades for the supercharged Ford Cobra. The fuel pump is a 255 Walboro, and the exhaust is a 3-inch turbo back to a 2.5-inch SARD rear section. I removed the SARD silencer for improved airflow. That pretty much covers the modifications done to this project so far. In future videos, we'll start covering new mods and testing out some of the things I've already done. As always, rate, subscribe, and stay tuned for more Project CMS.
Welcome to another